Greetings, fellow travelers.
And welcome to Beanbag Saturday.
Tonight we will be sharing scary and yet true stories that have transpired many generations.
Yes, they are true.
But first of all,
a word of the day. And our word of the day is Stygian. Stygian means dark or gloomy, hellish or infernal. It is the perfect word for this Halloween time. We have an episode exciting and fearful and terrifying for you.
we will be showing you many pictures that span many generations, and some of these pictures are very terrifying and unsettling, and the stories behind these pictures even more so. So join us for our special Halloween episode right now, right here.
For these stories are true, and by true that means we have researched them, that we have found them to be quite plausible.
And so with our first story, in 1959, Mrs. Mabel Chinnery was visiting the grave of her mother in a British churchyard and took a photo of her husband, who was waiting alone in the car. When the film was developed, Mrs. Chinnery recognized the image of her mother in the back seat, the woman whose grave they had visited on that day. A photo expert examined it for a British newspaper and declared the photo to be authentic.
Our next story is about a doll, and not your everyday household doll. It's about one that has a demonic presence. In fact, even a movie was made about this doll. I'm talking about Annabelle.
Annabelle is real. One of the creepiest parts of the truly scary The Conjuring is the evil possessed doll Annabelle, who makes up the cornerstone of Ed and Lorraine Warren's spooky museum of trophies. Director James Wan redesigned Annabelle for the movie, giving her a much more disturbing appearance, but in real life, Annabelle was just your run-of-the-mill Raggedy Ann doll. Donna got Annabelle from her mother in 1970. Mom bought the used doll at a hobby store. Donna was a college student at the time and living with a roommate named Angie, and at first neither thought the doll was anything special. Donna began to find pieces of parchment paper in the house with messages written on it. "Help us," they would say, or "Help Lou." Just to make the whole thing that much creepier, nobody in the house had parchment paper. The escalation continued. One night, Donna returned home to find Annabelle in her bed with blood on her hands. The blood, or some sort of red liquid, seemed to be coming from the doll itself. That was enough. Donna finally agreed to bring in a medium. The sensitive sat with the doll and told the girls that long before their apartment complex had been built, there had been a field on the property. A 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins had been found dead in the field. Her spirit remained, and when the doll came into the house, the girl latched onto it.
There is a bridge known as Overton. Several deaths of dogs and human beings have occurred on this bridge. A century-old haunted bridge, Overton, in Milton, Scotland, has claimed the death of nearly 50 dogs, with some 600 dogs in total, who have reportedly mysteriously jumped off the bridge. While locals believe the spirit of the White Lady of Overton is behind the mysterious phenomena, I was standing there 2 years ago when I felt a firm, hard prod that felt like a finger. Something or someone was trying to push me over the bridge too, just like the dog, said a religion and philosophy teacher Paul Owens from Glasgow. Signs have now been placed near the bridge warning dog owners to take caution, reading, "Please keep your dogs on a lead."
houses can get a little spooky this time of year. That's why the house in our next story is going to be one of our visits tonight. It's a real story about a real house that's really haunted. And the people there find some unwelcome guests.
The Warrens are perhaps the most famed paranormal investigators of all time. Among their famous cases were the Amityville incident and the haunting in Connecticut, both the subject of horror movies. The Warrens picked up the malevolent presences in the Perrin house in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The house had a real-life tragic history: 2 hanging suicides, 4 men freezing to death, and the murder of an 11-year-old girl. Local law does not require house history to be made public. The Perrins were not made aware of any of these incidents when they moved in. There really was a Bathsheba Sherman, and the Conjuring's claim of witchcraft and child killing may have some truth to them. Bathsheba was born in 1812 and married 1844. It is known that an infant in her care died in mysterious circumstances. The child was found dead, killed by a long sewing needle piercing its spinal column and under his skull. Townsfolk murmured that she was conducting a nefarious ritual, but this is unconfirmed. Regardless of cause and intention, this child died in the manner that was portrayed in the movie, a frightening and sadistic act. Carolyn and Roger Perrin, played by Lily Taylor and Ron Livingston in The Conjuring, really did contact Ed and Lorraine Warren when they realized something sinister was going on in their house. Carolyn described a horrifying incident when she was resting on the couch and felt a sharp pain in her lower leg. She saw blood, and the wound described by her daughter Andrea as a perfectly concentric circle, as if a large sewing needle had impaled her skin. I'll leave you with this quote from Andrea Perrin, who lived through it all. The Conjuring is based on a true story, our story. It's a fair reflection of the chaos and danger we faced at the farm. There are liberties taken and a few discrepancies, but overall it is what it claims to be, based on a true story, believe it or not.
Our next series of stories revolve around haunted paintings. Paintings that have caused havoc and chaos throughout generations. The painting, The Hands Resist Him, The Crying Boy, and The Anguished Man. These stories are real. Bill Stoneham's The Hands Resist Him, aka the eBay Haunted Painting, is one of the world's most haunted works of art. The Hands Resist Him features a boy and a creepy doll standing in front of a glass-paneled door. Stoneham's created the painting in 1972, and the Godfather actor John Marley purchased it a few years later. A couple in California eventually acquired the painting and put on eBay in February of 2000. Though the painting is creepy, the story behind it is even more so. According to the couple, the figures in the painting moved around at night and even left the canvas altogether. However, the boy and doll didn't simply disappear from view. They entered the room in which the painting was displayed. It seems the artwork's curse didn't just affect the owners. People who viewed the painting online reported feeling sick and faint. Italian painter Bruno Amadio created a series of paintings known as The Crying Boy, striking images of weeping children staring forlornly ahead. Mass-produced prints of the paintings were first released in the 1950s. A firefighter in England claimed that several copies of The Crying Boy had inexplicably survived dozens of house fires. The firefighter went on to say that neither he nor his fellow firemen would allow any version of the painting in their homes, as they believed the series was cursed. In 2010, a man named Sean Robinson reported strange activity in his home. Sean blamed the eerie events on a painting known as The Anguished Man, set up a camera to share the paranormal activity with viewers. According to Robinson, his grandmother originally owned the painting and believed it was cursed. She told Sean she saw dark figures near the painting and heard moans and cries in the night. She also claimed the artist had committed suicide after finishing the anguished man, and that he had mixed his own blood with the paint.
Our next story is one you may or may not be familiar with. There are several movies that are based upon this incident. It happened long ago in the mountains of Asia. And it happened to a group of young hikers. This, my friends, is called the Dyatlov Pass. And this really did happen.
This is the story of Dyatlov Pass, where 10 hikers had the goal to reach Overton, a mountain 10 kilometers north of the site of the incident. This route in February was estimated as Category 3, the most difficult. All members were experienced in long ski tours and mountain expeditions. Now, there were 10 people. Before leaving, Dyatlov had agreed he would send a telegram to their sports club as soon as the group returned to Vizhai. It was expected that this would happen no later than February 12th, but Dyatlov had mentioned before his departure from the group that he expected to be longer. When the 12th passed and no messages had been received, there was no immediate reaction, as delays of a few days were common with such expeditions. It was not until the relatives of the travelers demanded a rescue operation on February the 20th that the head of the institute sent the first rescue groups. These people, these 10 individuals, had been missing for some time when their bodies were discovered. There was little known about the expedition prior to then, other than there were snow warnings and snowstorm warning. But what they found was particularly scary. 6 of the group members died of hypothermia and 3 of fatal injuries. There were no indications of other people nearby on Kholat, apart from the 9 travelers. The tent had been ripped open from within. The victims had died 6 to 8 hours after their last meal. Traces from the camp showed that all group members left the campsite of their own accord on foot. To dispel the theory of an attack by the indigenous Mansi people, Dr. Boris stated that fatal injuries of the 3 bodies could not have been caused by another human being because the force of the blows had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. Forensic radiation tests had shown high doses of radioactive contamination on the clothes of a few victims. Release documents contain no information about the condition of the skiers' internal organs, and there were no survivors of the incident. The final verdict was that the group members all died because of a compelling natural force. The inquest officially ceased in May 1959 as a result of the absence of a guilty party. The files were sent to a secret archive, and the photocopies of the case became available only in the 1990s, although some parts were missing.
Our next story occurs in a different house, known as the Annabelle house, where brutal deaths took place. We have pictorial evidence of these occurrences, of spirits beyond the grave. This photo was allegedly taken inside the Annabelle house in 1976. It has become one of the most famous paranormal photos of all time. It features what appears to be a young boy with white eyes who is peeking out of a doorway. George Lutz revealed the Annabelle Ghost Boy photo on the Merv Griffin show back in 1979, 3 years after it was taken. The image was supposedly captured by Gene Campbell, a professional photographer who is part of the team who worked with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Gene had set up an automatic camera that took infrared pictures to capture the second-floor landing during the night. Equipped with black and white film, his camera captured this Amityville Ghost Boy photo that some have speculated could be the ghost of the murdered child, John DeFeo, who had lived in the house with his family prior to the Lutz. Dozens of websites have set out to prove or disprove the Amityville ghost photo, but most people have yet to be convinced one way or the other, thus allowing the infamous photo to continue to cast its spell. If you were chilled by this Halloween special, or find it fascinating, please tune in, click like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
As for our next episode, We've already given you a hint. You just need to read between the lines.
Yes.